All right, so we're diving deep today into a song that just about everyone knows.
Yeah.
Creep by Radiohead.
It's a classic.
It is. And it's one that we've gotten a ton of requests to kind of break down, figure out what makes it tick.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. Creep.
Yeah.
Radiohead.
Okay.
You've asked us to do a deep dive on this song.
All right.
And it's one of those songs that I think, like I said, almost everyone knows.
Yeah.
And even if you don't like Radiohead, you still kind of know this song.
You can't escape it.
You can't escape it.
Right.
It's everywhere. And there's something about it that just like cuts right through. Right. It's like this raw nerve.
Definitely.
And it's about feeling like a creep, like a weirdo, like you don't belong.
Mm.
And I think that's something that everyone can relate to on some level.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So what is it about this song that makes it still resonate? All these years later.
Well, I think it's that brutal honesty, right? Like it just cuts right to the chase and doesn't try to sugarcoat anything, It's just like, I'm a creep, I'm a weirdo. And that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially I think in adolescence when you're feeling awkward and out of place.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because I remember like the first time I heard this song, I was like in high school. And I was like, oh my God, this is like,
it's me.
This is me, And I think that's what's so powerful about it is that it just speaks to that universal feeling of not belonging.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into some of the lyrics here.
Okay.
Right from the start, we get these lines like, couldn't look you in the eye. Your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. What kind of picture is being painted here?
Well, I think it's this picture of unrequited love.
Okay.
Right? And this idealization of the other person.
Okay.
Putting them on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And the speaker is just completely captivated by this person, but also feeling completely inadequate.
In comparison.
Yeah, like they're not even on the same level.
Yeah, and that line, your skin makes me cry. It's so raw, right?
Yeah, it's so vulnerable.
It is.
And it speaks to the intensity of the speaker's feelings.
Yeah, and that vulnerability is really interesting because then it kind of turns inward.
Yeah.
Right? Like the speaker starts to internalize those feelings of inadequacy, and that's where we get the chorus.
Exactly.
I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, I think that's something that everyone can relate to at some point.
I agree.
Right.
Have you ever felt like that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially, like I said, in high school. You're just trying to figure out where you fit in.
Totally.
And it's easy to feel like you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And the way that the music builds in that chorus, it's like quiet verses and then this explosive chorus.
Yeah.
It's like the speaker's emotions are just like
bursting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dynamics of the song are really interesting. The way it builds and the releases.
Yeah.
It really amplifies the emotional arc.
Totally.
And the distorted guitars and the way Tom York's voice cracks. It's also visceral.
It is. It's like you can feel the pain and the longing. So then we get to this part where the speaker starts talking about wanting to change.
Okay.
I want to have control.
Yeah.
I want a perfect body. I want a perfect soul. I want you to notice when I'm not around.
Yeah.
So is this just about wanting to impress this other person? Or is there something deeper going on?
I think it's probably a bit of both.
Okay.
On the one hand, the speaker wants to transform themselves to be worthy of this person they desire.
Right.
But I think there's also this deeper desire to be seen, to be acknowledged for who they are, even when they're not present.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because then it goes into that repetition.
Yes.
You're so fucking special. I wish I was special.
Yeah.
And that line is repeated throughout the song. And it's almost like a mantra of self-doubt.
It is. It really highlights the contrast. The speaker feels between themselves and the person they're fixated on.
Yeah.
They see themselves as ordinary and lacking. And this other person is just so
special,
untouchable almost.
And then we get to this part where it seems like the other person is pulling away.
Okay.
She's running out again. She run.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it could be interpreted literally. Maybe she's actually running away from the speaker. She feels overwhelmed by the intensity of his feelings.
Right.
But I think it could also be a metaphor for her emotional unavailability.
Yeah.
Like she's just out of reach no matter how much the speaker wants her.
And that adds this whole other layer of sadness
Yeah.
to the song. Right. Like, it's not just about feeling like a creep. It's about feeling like a creep who's in love with someone who doesn't love them back.
Yes, exactly.
And then we get to the end of the song.
Totally.
And it's almost heartbreaking.
It is.
The speaker just kind of resigns themselves to the situation.
Mm.
Whatever makes you happy, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, they've given up.
It's like they've accepted defeat.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a glimmer of hope in that acceptance.
Oh.
You know, like maybe by letting go of their expectations,
Mm-hmm.
the speaker can finally start to move on.
So what do you think? Is Creep ultimately a song of despair? Or is there a glimmer of hope in that final acceptance?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it's open to interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I think there's a bit of both.
Okay.
You know, it's a sad song,
Yeah.
but there's also this sense of resilience in it. Like,
Okay.
even though the speaker is hurting, they're still willing to let go
Mm-hmm.
and move on.
And I think that's what makes it so relatable. Right.
Definitely.
Because we've all been there. We've all had our hearts broken.
Uh-huh.
And we've all had to figure out how to move on.
And I think that's what makes this song so timeless.
Yeah.
It speaks to something universal about the human experience. It does that feeling of longing and heartbreak.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately the need to let go
Absolutely.
and move on.
So why do you think this song still resonates with people after all these years?
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Creep that just seems to cut through all the noise and grab hold of us? I mean, it came out in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And it still is relevant today.
More than ever, maybe?
Maybe even more so, yeah.
Because I think people are still struggling with those same feelings
Mm-hmm.
of not belonging, of feeling like an outsider, of
Right.
wanting to be loved and accepted.
Yeah. And maybe it's even more intense now
Yeah.
with social media. And,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's comparing themselves to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why this song still hits so hard. It speaks to something that's deep within us.
It does.
You know, that fear of being alone, that fear of not being good enough,
Exactly.
and that longing to connect
Yeah,
with
yeah.
someone.
It's a powerful song.
It is.
And I think it'll continue to resonate for years to come.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Well, that was our deep dive into Radiohead's Creep.
It was fun.
It was
Yeah.
it was really fun to kind of unpack this song
Uh-huh.
and see what makes it tick.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time
See ya.
for another deep dive.
All right.
But before we go, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
If Radiohead were to write Creep today,
Mm-hmm.
what would it sound like? Would it be different? Would it be the same? I don't know, but it's something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See ya.